Hello friends, welcome to the UPSC Sociology Question Paper Analysis 2022. The paper is relatively easy except one question on data and information. Other questions are relatively easy. We'll just give you a brief analysis of the questions which were asked in paper 1 Sociology 2022. Before going for the analysis, I am very happy to tell you that for the 14th time consecutively, we have predicted UPSC Sociology 100%. Normally, I used to give hit list for my students related to the topics which they have to focus upon for that particular year. And 14th year, I have given the hit list to the students, and we also found that in the 14th year, we have all the questions which came in UPSC Sociology, both paper 1, paper 2, can be easily found in our hit list. The details of the hit list questions will be given shortly. Now we will go for the question analysis. So this is the first question: delimit the scope of sociology in relation to other social sciences. So this is a question which was already asked in 2021 as multidisciplinarity in sociology. Sociology is a discipline which is having so much of interconnection with other disciplines. So it is a multidisciplinary subject. It is an interdisciplinary subject, and this is what is the crux of the answer. It is multidisciplinarity in sociology, whereby we can combine all the social sciences under an umbrella called as sociology, which is why Auguste Comte says that sociology is the queen of social sciences, right? So you should write here in the introduction that how sociology is a product of many social sciences. Starting from philosophy, we have so many enrichments done to sociology, and that is why sociology has grown as a subject having multiple disciplines within. And write about how sociology is connected to other disciplines like anthropology, psychology, history, economy, political science, so on and so forth. Anthropology and sociology, Malinowski; psychology and sociology, G.H. Mead; economy and sociology, Karl Marx; political science and sociology, Max Weber; history and sociology, again Karl Marx. So we can generate points with which we can easily attempt this question. This is what is the key concept which you should have explained, which you should have written in the answer. So this is a very straightforward question, and I hope that every one of you should have written this. Now come to the 1B. How does a researcher achieve objectivity in interpretative research? See, I have put in the test batch question how it is difficult to have objectivity in qualitative research. This is nothing but qualitative research. It's a qualitative method. Interpretative method is a qualitative method. Scientific method is a quantitative method. So objectivity can be there in quantitative method called science, which was emphasized by positivism, whereas objectivity is a challenge, or it is absolutely not possible in an interpretative discipline called as non-positivism. So this is nothing but a challenge between positivism and non-positivism, which was already asked in the past paper, as well as you have the same type of question coming in this paper itself. So two questions came from the same area. How will you maintain researcher objectivity in a qualitative research? This is the question. So, in the introduction, we should write the challenges of objectivity in qualitative method like interpretation, and this is spoken by non-positivism. You have to write how non-positivism speaks about the problems of objectivity, right, as a critique to positivism. Thereafter, what we have to write is what can we do to ensure objectivity in qualitative research. This we have in paper 2 as well, that in the village studies we raise this issue that village study is a qualitative method which requires interpretation, and when you go for this village study there are present certain biases. How to avoid the researcher bias? S.C. Dubey says we have to ensure that we use multiple methods to ensure objectivity, and M.N. Srinivas says before a person is studying his own society, he has to be trained to study other societies. So, researcher bias, researched bias, the empathy of the researcher, all these are the problems of objectivity present. How will you ensure that these problems of objectivity can be mitigated in qualitative method? What Weber says about this? Weber says use multiple methods, use trained researchers, try to bridge the gap between the researched and the researched and the researcher. Like that, Weber is giving a number of solutions for problems of objectivity in qualitative method, right. So, we can write Max Weber's solution for problems of objectivity. He writes a book, Objectivity in Social Science and Social Policy, where he speaks about the problems of objectivity and the solutions to solve the problems of objectivity in social science research, right. So, this may be the guideline with the help of which one can easily construct an answer for this question. Now, come to this C part of first question. The difference between information and data in social science is very subtle, and this is the only question which will be difficult for most of the students, because this dimension we have not seen, right. But we can manage the paper, manage the question. This question can be easily managed. See, you need not write extremely well all the 19 questions to cross 300. If you do 15 questions excellently and remaining 4 questions, if you manage the paper, definitely you will be able to cross 300, right. Information and data, what is the difference? In the introduction, write what is data, what is information. Data is what? Just a raw material. It is only a raw material. It is unorganized fact. Whereas information is an organized fact. It is an organized fact which comes out of the processing of the data. So, it comes out of the processing of the data called information. Take for example, if the score of a person in the test is given, it is a data. In comparison to the average test score of all students, if this score is compared, then that is what is information. Getting my point or not? Just number is data, it does not have any meaning of its own. So, data is not having any meaning of its own, but information is having meaningfulness. Meaningfulness is what is searched in observation. What you do in observation method, we are not looking at data. We are only seeing the interconnections amongst the data. Interrelatedness amongst data is what is called as information. So, organized data is what is information. Unorganized data is only data, right. So, this is what is the crucial difference we have between these two concepts, data and information. Now, the question says that in case of the social science, this distinction is very subtle, it is not very clear. Yes, when you can see that Emile Durkheim is going to collect data of suicide, right? So he is collecting the data, he is processing the data, and he is arriving at an information. But before itself, he came to an understanding that there is something present in the society which is what is pushing the individual to commit suicide. So when he is collecting data, he will try to collect maximally, anyone will try to collect data not as a data, they will collect data as information only, right? In the field study also, M.N. Srinivas has studied Rampura village, where he writes about the religion, how it is practiced by people. He spoke about Sanskritization. So when he is going to the field to study, he is not just collecting the raw data, he is seeing data in its interconnectedness only. In the very first site itself, he is seeing data in its interconnectedness, he is seeing only information, not in bits and pieces of data. Let it be the case of M.N. Srinivas, or it may be the case of Andre Bete. When he studies the village study, he also is having a pattern in his mind that the reality is very heterogeneous. Now, using that perspective, he studies or he collects data. He is collecting data in its interconnectedness in the very first place itself. So, this is why we say that in science it is possible for us to clearly draw a Lakshman Rekha between information and data, but in case of social science, this line between data and information is very blurred, and that is what the answer for this question. See, nowhere you can find a direct answer for this question, but if you have an understanding of this point that data is a raw thing which is unorganized and information is an organized data which is meaningfulness, which is having some meaningfulness, so we will be able to use some sort of sociological studies to substantiate what we are telling. Here it is not about the correctness of the answer. Try to understand that here it is not the correctness of the answer, it is about how you are able to tackle the question, how boldly you are able to tackle the question, and this is a compulsory question which cannot be left at all. So, are you leaving the question, or you are trying to do some attempt? If you do some attempt, if you are just in the direction of the answer, if you are even in the starting point of the answer, you will be rewarded for this question according to me. So, appropriateness of the answer cannot be seen in some questions which are like bouncer questions like this. I would say that only one such question has been asked in paper 1 this year 2022. Otherwise, the remaining questions are straightforward and easy. Now come to the deep part. Durkheim argued that society is more than the sum of the parts. This is a very, very simple and straightforward question. Anyone who has studied Emile Durkheim would be able to attempt this question with ease. With ease. This is what is Durkheim's sociology. That when parts combine to form the whole is more than the sum of the parts. So, in the introduction, you have to write about social realism of Emile Durkheim. He is writing social realism, about social realism, taking clue from his own teacher Emile Boutroux. He writes about how reality is a product of society, that when parts are combining to form the whole is more than the sum of the parts, that individuals are coming together, they establish a pattern network of relation, they make a society. Once the society came, it is a higher order reality, it is a reality sui generis which cannot be reduced to the sum of the individual parts. So, this is a very, very straightforward question on social realism. Understood? He also has made this statement in his book Rules of Sociological Method. Right? So, this is a very plain question which does not require any use of excessive mind. We can use only mind at the moderate level. No too much of demand is there, intellectually speaking. Now come to the E question of the first question. How do sociologists construct gender in their analysis of social inequality? Gender. In the introduction, write how sex is different from gender. Sex is a biological construct, whereas gender is a socio-cultural construct. It's a socio-cultural construct. Gender is the first and the foremost identity of every individual. Therefore, it is the first form of stratification according to whom? Solar-Smith-Firestone. What Solar-Smith-Firestone says in her concept of dialectics of sex, she says that the first prototype inequality is given by gender-based inequality. Class-based inequality came only after gender-based inequality came. So, those points will have to be written. Here you have to definitely write the name of Firestone. You have to definitely write the name of Anne Oakley. You can also write the name of Sylvia Walby. Many feminists you are having to write an answer for this question. So, it is the first and the foremost dimension of social inequality. It is social inequality, meaning how economically there is an inequality they are facing because of gender, how politically there is an inequality, how psychologically they are making women inferior, feel inferior in comparison to men. Kate Millett has told in her book Sexual Politics how there is an interiorization of power psychology because of patriarchy, right? So, various forms of unequal treatment is given to women, and that is what is the crux of the answer for this question. Definitely couple of feminist name if you have written, then you will be able to convince the teacher who is correcting your paper. Now come to the second question, enlightenment and emergence of sociology. Enlightenment and emergence of sociology. See, last year 2021, they asked a question on all the three topics present in unit number 1 in paper 1. There was a question on emergence last year, there was a question on common sense last year, and there was a question on sociology relation with other social sciences. This year also you have one question on emergence and one question on scope of sociology or sociology's relation with other social sciences. So, continuously, repeatedly they are asking the question, especially the question on emergence of sociology and sociology's relation with other social sciences. What is enlightenment will have to be written in the introduction. What do you mean by enlightenment? It is nothing but a war of thought between spirituality and rationality, how science is coming to question the orthodox superstitious practices, how that value modernity is happening, and this has been supported by modernity at various levels like political modernity, economic modernity, which is causing cultural modernity, social modernity, and to study modernity came sociology as a distinct discipline, right? So, this is how you have to tackle, or you would have tackled the question enlightenment, because intellectual modernity comes through this enlightenment, taking clue from science. Science questions religion. That is why we say that there is a contradiction between rationality and spirituality, right? So, science is trying to give you reasoning based on logic. Science is attempting to give you knowledge based on empirical fact, which was not given by religion. So, science comes to attack religion, which is what was said already by Auguste Comte, that religion will be replaced by science in his law of 3 stages: theological, metaphysical and scientific, right? So, how that spirituality versus rationality, science versus religion, that thinking resulted in changes, which and all changed? All the dimensions of society or the sectors of society. Family changed, education changed, religion itself got reformed, science changed, education changed, culture changed, language changed, value system changed, polity changed, economic changed. So, new values like individualism especially came. and these changes were contributing for the rise of a new society in 19th century Europe. To study that new society, the structure of the new society, the prospect of the new society and the problem of the new society, came sociology as a systematic study of society. That is how we can conclude an answer for this question. It is a 20 marker question. You have so many points to write on the contestations between religion and science which paved way for a new society. How the supporters of this modernity encourages progressive society, how the opposers of modernity discourage this new society, that enlightenment scholars versus conservative scholars. Who were enlightenment scholars? Adam Smith, Montesquieu, Rousseau, Vico, Adam Ferguson, right? When you come to this side, conservative scholars, Ferdinand Tönnies. What Ferdinand Tönnies says, that there is a movement from Gemeinschaft to Gesellschaft, but in Gesellschaft relation there is so much of instrumentality without any emotion. So every action is very, very purposive action. People are not having empathy, they become very apathetic. So prosperity came, but what is the point of prosperity without happiness? Harmony got threatened, stability got threatened, inequality increased, war between nations increased. So discriminations were happening at various levels. So there is so much of chaos present in the name of modernity, and this is what is called as crisis of modernity. Crisis of modernity, right? There is one scholar who speaks about risk society. Ulrich Beck writes about risk society. Deepankar Gupta writes about mistaken modernity. Like that, you have scholars to give you answer for these questions. So this is what is the tentative point which you can write for this 2A. Now come to 2B, non-probability sampling techniques, right? In the introduction, write why you choose non-probability sampling in comparison to probability sampling. That can be the introduction. Why non-probability sampling? If you do not have a readily available complete list of the population to study, you have to go for non-probability sampling. So, if you don't have ready-made list, then you have to go for non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling will give greater chance of getting selected for some people in comparison to other people. But at the same time, those people who are going to get selected, they are not aware, they will not be certain of getting selected. So it increases the chance of selection of some group of people in comparison to some people in comparison to other people. But those people who are selected, they do not have the knowledge, they will not know, it is unknown selection, right? So two things, one is it increases the probability of some people to get selected than other people. Secondly, those who are getting selected, they are not knowing about their selection, they will not be knowing beforehand about their selection. So this is how you have to give introduction for non-probability sampling, which will be a difference between probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Then what they have asked, the different types of non-probability sampling is what they have asked. What are the different types of non-probability sampling? You have to give a list. For example, convenience sampling, then voluntary response sampling, then the snowball sampling, purposive sampling. Like that, there are some types of non-probability sampling which has to be written for this question. So, at what conditions their usage will have to be made, with example you can give. So, types of non-probability sampling, introduction, why we choose NPS over PS. This is what the approach which you have to have. Open society, closed society debate is a very awfully repeated question. You just have to see the previous year question paper. How many times they have asked this question? Directly they have asked this question many times. So, what in the introduction? Introduction you have to write about the common perspective. What? The evolutionary scholars, right from Auguste Comte till Talcott Parsons, what is their understanding of West? Their understanding of West is, it is an open society, whereas East, like Indian society, is a closed society. Now write why they say West is open, why they say East is closed. Write about Comte, write about Durkheim, write about Parsons, even write about Max Weber, Karl Marx. These scholars have spoken about the open versus closed society debate. When other people are telling that the capitalist society is relatively open because it permits mobility, it gives you opportunity for mobility, it is a democratic society where achievement is the norm, meritocracy is the norm, but Karl Marx dismisses this point that capitalism is not open because it makes only rich richer and poor poorer. So, mobility according to Karl Marx is only an eyewash. Therefore, he wanted the solution for poverty lies in a voluntary, deliberate, conscious class conflict by the proletariat. He suggested proletarian revolution as the solution for solving the problems of poverty in capitalism. Now, this was not at all accepted by Indian sociologists, that we are not closed. Because if you look at Louis Dumont in his book Homo Hierarchicus, he writes that Indian society is caste-based society. Caste is based on the notion called purity pollution. This notion cannot change at all. So, caste is going to hinder mobility. Caste will not allow a Shudra to become Brahmin. Therefore, it is a closed society, and this he is very much writing in his book called as Homo Hierarchicus. But this was rejected by a number of Indian sociologists. Let it be M. and Srinivas. What Srinivas says, Indian society is not closed society because there is present Sanskritization, which is an instrument for avenue for mobility in the caste society. Even Andre Bete writes about how mobility is present. Understood? So, Yogendra Singh also writes about the presence of mobility in Indian society. Because of democratic decentralization, green revolution, there has been a sea change in the structure of the society. Understood? But finally, we have to conclude that in the Western society, there is present inequality of opportunity for women. Politically, women are excluded. Even today, you do not have a women president in America. Also, black people are discriminated in comparison to white people. All the key positions are occupied by the white people in America. Understood? So, gender-based inequality is present, racial inequality is present in America. How can there be mobility? Wherever mobility is present, there is only a restricted mobility. There is only elite self-recruitment. This process of elite self-recruitment. Elite self-recruitment means what? People who are in the upper strata, they will recruit their own children to their position. They will not let other people to come up. This is what is called as elite self-recruitment. So, predominantly you will be finding presence of power elite. C.W. Mills writes about power elite. Predominantly, power elite will be present in many places like army, like MNC, like government. Only power elites are present in America. So, America is not an open society. It does not give equality of opportunity. Noam Chomsky, an ardent critique of American capitalism, Noam Chomsky, what he says? He says that America professes equality, but it is practicing inequality. And finally, conclusion is what? All societies are having some closed character, all societies are having some open character. So, no society is absolutely open, no society is absolutely closed. Openness and closeness is a matter of degree rather than kind. That is what is the conclusion which you can write for this question. This question is a very frequently asked question. Now, go to the next question, 3A. Shortfalls of positivism that gave rise to non-positivism. Very simple question. More than this, how simple question can be lifted? Very simple question they have asked. So, what are the pitfalls of positivism? In the introduction, we have to write about what is the aim of positivism. Wanting sociology to be a scientific study of society. How? By adopting the principles and the methods of science. We can study society scientifically according to Auguste Comte, according to Emile Durkheim. But contrary to their expectation, there were certain limitations in positivism. What are the limitations of positivism? Karl Popper writes about limitations of positivism, that he prefers to use which method? Deduction method rather than induction method. He wanted positivism should believe in falsifiability. Falsifiability, not verifiability. Hypothesis should have the element of falsifiability. So, probability of falsifiability should be there. Understood? That is what is Karl Popper. What Michael Lynch says, positivism is not objective, right? What Weber says, positivism is missing out the role of mind. According to Max Weber, action is the subject matter of sociology. But for positivism, what is the subject matter of sociology? According to Emile Durkheim, fact is the subject matter of sociology. Fact is something which is external to the individual, but action is something which is internal to the individual. So, the subjective actor or the subjective state of the actor will have to be the subject matter of sociology. And Weber says, therefore, we cannot use observation method, we can only use interpretative method to identify the invisible dimensions of reality. Behind every visible dimensions of reality, only invisible dimension of reality is present according to Max Weber. So, you have to contradict Durkheim by Max Weber. To substantiate Max Weber, you can write G.H. Mead's symbolic interactionism, phenomenology, ethnomethodology can be written to identify the limitations of positivism. So, this is again a very straightforward question which will not be a problem for any student who has written this optional. Critically examine how Durkheim and Merton explicate anomie. Very repeated question again. See, I told you that this paper is a very simple paper, except that fact versus that information versus data. It's relatively very simple paper. Anomie. Merton took clue only from Durkheim. Durkheim writes about anomie. The context where he is writing. Both of them write about the crisis of modernity. Modern society is having some crisis. One uses the term to explain how the suicide rate is suddenly increasing in France and there is a need for course correction. He sees that anomie is because of egoism, individualism, sponsored by modernity. People are becoming more selfish, people are more self-centric. So, there is so much of egoism in modern society because it gives primacy to individualism. When premium is given to individualism, collectivism is lost, and that is what is the problem. That is what is the problem called as anomy for Emile Durkheim. Taking clue from Emile Durkheim, Merton is writing his book on social structure and anomy. So, Durkheim's on anomy, he writes about anomy in his work on suicide, he writes about anomic suicide, write about this. Then social structure and anomy, R.K. Merton writes about how goals and means are incompatible and therefore individual is adapting. So, very easy for us to tackle this question. Go to the next question, that what are the measures which we can take to minimize the influence of the researcher in collecting data through focused group discussion. Focused group discussion is a qualitative method similar to the semi-structured interview. It is a qualitative method similar to semi-structured interview. We are focusing selectively on some people. Purposefully we have selected some people and we are having a group discussion with that people. So, it is a qualitative method, it requires interpretation. Now, there will be present biasness. What are the things which we are going to do to minimize the researcher bias? How researcher will be biased? He will be biased because he comes from his own culture, so he will be biased. So, what and all we have to do to avoid researcher bias? Again we have to use what Weber says, that he has to be a trained researcher. He has to use multiple methods to cross check the research findings. The gap between the researched and the researcher will have to be bridged. Researcher should clearly intimate why he chose the topic of research. So, Weber says value frankness. You should clearly tell the rationality for choosing a particular group as the focused group for discussion. Why you chose this group? You have to clearly tell them the rationality. Then the skill set of the researcher will have to be high. He has to have certain skill set, like he should be an effective communicator. He should be able to develop easy rapport with the researched. He should be able to adopt flexible approaches when the situation is needing. He should ensure that the researched are comfortably placed in the research situations. He should also ensure that values don't creep into the research. How? He has to doubly ensure whether there is any possibility of value creeping into the research by cross checking, right. So, whatever you have told earlier, the problems in qualitative methods, what objectivity, problems of objectivity in qualitative method you told, the same thing can be written, but you use the skill set of the researcher more, like communicating, effective communicator, all these stories can be written for this question. It is only a 10-marker question. Degradation of work in capitalism. What is Marxism? He is only speaking about the anti-human character of capitalism. How and all he writes about the degrading nature of capitalism? He writes about pauperization. He writes about commodity fetishism, that is anomy, alienation. So, in the introduction we should speak about how Marx is wanting capitalism to change because it is the most exploitative human system. For him, capitalism is not only, capitalist overthrow is not only desirable, it is also inevitable. Why capitalist overthrow, or why overthrow of capitalism is inevitable because he says there are present some seeds of self-destruction within capitalism, that there is present unity of opposites, there is present unity of opposites, presence of opposites, people who are workers, people who are owners, they have antagonistic interests. So, this is union of opposites which will lead to the destruction of capitalism of its own. But before capitalism is dying a natural death, it will kill most of the workers. So, therefore, through a deliberate class conflict, we have to kill capitalism before capitalism is killing us, is what is the context of Marxism. So, how and all capitalism is exploiting the people, you have to write through the concept of pauperization. The rich becomes richer, the poor becomes poorer, and people will become lumpen proletariat. Lumpen proletariat, they will become depressed. When there is a boom, then all the profit will be stolen by the owner. He says profit is the theft committed by the owner. He is stealing the hard work of the worker in the name of profit. State also comes to make law only to justify, legitimize profit. So, therefore, in communism there will be no law, there will be no state, there will be no family, everybody is moral, they will guide themselves. There is self-regulation, there is no need for social regulation, there will be a self-regulation according to Marxism. And this is different from Emile Durkheim, who stresses on social regulation, because people are not having their own moral regulation, they have to be regulated from outside according to Emile Durkheim. That is why he says that man has insatiable appetites. Through the external control called society only we can regulate them, but he believes that man by very nature is morally right. So, how and all capitalism is degrading the worker, that is what is the essence of Marxism. If you write Marxism, you are answering to the question. Next is social stratification, social order and stability. Very simple question. Functionalist theory of social stratification. This is what? Functionalist theory of social stratification. It is given by Davis and Moore. Davis and Moore, also Talcott Parsons. What in Davis and Moore? We will write functional uniqueness, functional dependence, because some roles are functionally important roles. Functional importance can be seen through functional uniqueness and functional dependence. So, society is a system, it has certain roles, it has certain functional prerequisites. One such a functional prerequisite is maintaining order and stability, and that part which is performing this functional prerequisite is what is called as social stratification. A very straightforward question which can be easily attempted. Critical assessment. Who is critically analyzing? Melvin Tumin. 7 points he is raising to critically analyze functionalism. That functional importance is a matter of perception, role of the bargaining power by the organized group, which is what is causing differential payment. Talent pool is not limited because there is no definition of talent, and there is hostility, social division, there is inequality of opportunity. 7 points have been given by Melvin Tumin to critically appraise Davis and Moore. What is reliability? What are the different tests available to establish reliability? A very simple question about reliability. What is reliability? Reliability means consistency. That is what is reliability. Reliability is consistency. In the introduction, you write that reliability is consistency and validity is what? Whether it is measuring what it intended to measure, whether it measures what it intended to measure, that is what is validity. So, after having written in the introduction what is reliability and what is validity, in the body of the answer you have to write about different tests which are available to maintain reliability. Test, retest reliability, test, retest, internal consistency, reliability. Then you have what? The split half reliability, split half consistency or correlate, split half reliability, and fourthly inter-rater reliability, So this can be written. It is a 10 marker question. So what is this, what is this, what is this, what is this? Two lines you can write given example, which will be sufficient for you to attack this question. Relevance of Durkheim critically with respect to his religion. So in the introduction, what you are going to write? In the intro, you are going to write about what is Durkheim's understanding of religion. Religion is nothing but worshipping one's own society. Religion is social solidarity. In a study of totemism, he found how religion is giving identity, solidarity, kinship obligation, and social regulation. Now, after having written this, you should write whether Durkheim's theory can be applicable to the contemporary religions. Is a matter of sociological debate. Who says it is dysfunctional? R.K. Merton. Write about R.K. Merton, that religion will cause unity only in small society, but religion will be divisive factor in a complex society. In a multi-religious society, religion divides people rather than uniting people, and definitely religion reviving itself in the form of fundamentalism, communalism, which is a challenge to secularism, religious nationalism, which is nothing but cultural nationalism, is threatening to the democratic fabric of societies, especially India. Rajinder Sachar committee recommendation. What Sachar says? Sachar says that the plights of Muslims are equivalent to Dalits in India. What Zoya Hassan says? Zoya Hassan says that because of the social exclusion faced by Muslims, their attachment to the madrasas have become astronomically higher. Right? So these are some of the points with the help of which a short notes can be easily written by you. Discuss various theoretical perspectives of family. More than this, no question as simple as this can come. The most simplest question is theories on family. What are the theories on family? In the introduction, write what is family. Then write about in the body theories of family. You should have written this theories of family. So functionalist theory, especially G.P. Murdoch and Talcott Parsons. Then Marxian theories, Frederick Engels. Then radical view, Edmund Leach, R.D. Laing. Feminist theory, Sula Smith Firestone, Anne Oakley again, feminist theory of family. Right. So conclusion, family today has changed its structure and function. The old structure is replaced by new structure. Today you have new families which are called as non-normative families. Non-normal families, especially homosexual families. The functions have changed. Some functions have been taken up by specialized institutions. But despite of all these structural functional changes of family, family is the most primary institution even today. You should write that. Capitalism is satisfying your economic needs. Democracy will satisfy your political needs. But your emotional needs can be satisfied only by family. That is why the changing structure and function of family is only meaning adaptation of the family, not family becoming an irrelevant institution. So, no society is a familyless society. Every society has one or the other forms of family. The first family which was created by the human society was an atom family, atomic family called as mother-child family. Right? So, family is not going to the oblivion. It is as usual a very, very key institution in the society. As Parsons says that there are two roles which cannot be done by any institution other than family. He uses the term irreducible functions of family, primary socialization and adult personality stabilization. Without these two, without family, these two functions can never ever be performed by any institution. So, this can be the point for this question. Feminization of work. What do you mean by feminization of work? In the introduction, you have to define what is feminization. Intro should be, what is feminization? Feminization means, number one, presence of women in the paid employment. Number two, presence of women in sector specific jobs, pink collar jobs. Number three, the role which was earlier performed by men, by women, are now being performed by men. So, women role is now done by men. These are the three important dimensions of feminization. What are the implications? You have to write the positive implications, you have to write the negative implications. What are the positive implications? Definitely, she will be empowered. It's an avenue for emancipation, economic, substantive equality can be achieved by this. So, her decision making power will increase. Stereotypical role will not be there because of the joint conjugal role. What do you mean by joint conjugal role? Elizabeth Bott says, B-O-T-T, that both men and women will do the job equally. So, there is no strict gender based division of labor. This is what is called as joint conjugal role because of she entering into the paid employment. But what are the negatives? That she has to take up even the household work along with the paid work. So, she will be having dual burden, dual role to play, and because of this she will have role conflict. She will have role strain because she cannot balance both the demands. And pink collar job is what? That she will be excluded from key positions in the society because of the presence of glass ceiling. Glass ceiling. And violence against women in the workplace is increasing because of presence of women in the public places, especially in the paid employment. So, these are some of the implications, positive and negative implications, which has to be written for this question. Next is secularization, global trends. So, in the introduction, you should write about how secularization in the global world is leading to religious revivalism. So, secularization is leading to religious revivalism, right? How it is leading to religious revivalism? What globalization does? It causes more individualization. It causes more annihilation. of culture. It is killing the religious diversity. So, when religion is attacked by secularization, then religion is getting revived. Iran is a case. Religious revivalism in Iran, religious revivalism in Myanmar, religious revivalism in Uyghur province in China, religious revivalism in India, religion based revivalism in South Asia and West Asia. Also, religion is influencing politics in the West as well. So, secularization means what? Role of religion should decline in its public significance. Religious thinking, religious action, religious practices will have to have reduced public significance. But we find that religion is not reducing its public significance, it is becoming more significant. In France, Sikhs were protesting against the ban on turban ban, right? So, Salman Rushdie affair, when he wrote about satanic verses, then what the extremists told, that he has to run away, he has to be beheaded. So, what secularization should have to give you? Tolerance. But what secularization has done? Revivalism. Secularization is not having one single model. In India, we have a different secularization where we go by principled distance. So, Western secularization, Eastern secularization also has a difference. We can write those points just briefly because you will not have time. We have attempted the question like this, then comparison of India versus remaining part of the world may have to be written in 1 or 2 lines, that's all. 5e, development perspective on social change. Trace the trajectory. See, the earlier perspective was growth perspective and later on it became developmental perspective. Earlier perspective was growth perspective, later on it became development perspective. Now, what is growth? What is development? You know, the demands of development is beyond the demands for growth. When growth can be measured based on the economic criterion, development should be measured based on social criterion. When growth will want to remove poverty, development wanted you to remove not just poverty but a comprehensive social exclusion will have to be removed. So, who spoke about growth model? All sociologists who are evolutionary scholars ranging from Auguste Comte, Spencer spoke about evolutionary model. For them, growth is because of social change. Social change will give you growth. So, social change will give you progress. He writes about theological, metaphysical, scientific. So, scientific society is a progressive society according to Auguste Comte. Spencer says about differentiation and integration, which is a twin process of social change which leads to growth. Adam Smith also spoke about growth through the laissez-faire economy. Growth will be guaranteed according to Adam Smith. But Keynesian theory rejected this Growth is not meaning development. The state will have to become a welfare state. State will have to tax the people. The proceeds of that has to be used for welfare policies. State will have to do something to remove unemployment problem. A very important sociologist, his name is L.T. Hobhouse, who wrote a book. Title of the book is Social Development. L.T. Hobhouse wrote a book. Title of the book is Social Development. He is borrowing from Comte and Spencer only. When Comte said that knowledge is an indicator of social change, Hobhouse also says yes, knowledge is an indicator of social change. But he elaborated that you cannot simply say that theological, metaphysical, scientific, you have to go deep into how knowledge is developing. He wrote his social change theory using developmental model, who? L.T. Hobhouse, in which he says there are 5 different levels of mental development. So, mental development will have to take place, not just in one place, but in all places. In all spheres of the social life, political life, economic life, mental development will take place. Mental development is directly proportional to scientific development. Mental development will result in rationality in all spheres. L.T. Hobhouse also writes about morals in evolution. He wrote another book, Mind in Evolution, another book, Morals in Evolution, where he says that cognitive development is very much needed for overall social development. Right? So, Amartya Sen on development. It's about social justice. Distribution is what is development. So, this is how we are tracing from the growth theorist to developmental theorist. According to Mead, the idea of self develops when the individual becomes self-conscious. So, in the introduction, we have to write about Mead in his book Mind, Self and Society. Explains the evolution of self. Self is evolving because of a dialectical mind. Mind is dialectical. Because of the mind dialectical, the self also evolves dialectically. What is the dialectics in the evolution of self? Dialectics lies in the 2 important components called as I part and me part. Through the process of socialization, this self is unfolding. Self is conscious about its own presence, about the presence of others, about the norms in the society and about the situation. Right? He gives the example of baseball game, where the player will be able to take the role and he will be involving in role playing. When he is involving in role playing, he knows his own presence, he knows his role, what he is supposed to do, what the rule of the game says, what my teammates are expecting out of me, what the audience is expecting out of me, what the opponent team is going to plan against me. So, like that, you will have to develop a composite expectation of the larger society, which is what is called as generalized others. Earlier, you had to think only about the significant others. Later, you developed a comprehensive understanding of the generalized others. So, this is how the evolution happens, and this again is not that so difficult, relatively straightforward question. If you know about Mead, you will write the answer exactly for this question. Transition from ideology to identity politics. So, ideology, what do you mean by ideology? Ideology is nothing but the world view. It's a worldview. Ideology is a worldview. It is a set of assumption which we have about a particular society, about a particular system, economy or polity. So that ideology was the root of the political action in the past. But today, ideology politics is replaced by interest based politics. There is politics of interest or interest based politics. So, we are giving an opportunity for expression of our identity in politics, and democracy is giving that opportunity. You have two different types of identity. One is I identity, another is we identity. You use we identity to manifest political action in a democracy, because democracy believes in numerical majority. So, identity is a social mobilizer. Who says this? T.K. Woman says. Identity is a social mobilizer. We are using identity to articulate the interests. So, interest based politics is becoming more prevalent than the idea based politics or ideology based politics. Talk about the reservation movement today is not based on ideology, it is based on identity. If you belong to a dominant caste, even without ritual impurity, because of the political strength, numerical majority, people claim reservation benefit. So, this is what is making reservation becoming more political than sociological. That is why we say that there is politics of reservation is outsmarting the sociology of reservation. So, identity, on what basis you articulate politics today? Based on caste. Caste is one identity, religion is one identity, region is one identity. These are the three important political identity movements happening in India today. So, this can be easily attempted. You have points to write. Then, little tradition, great tradition is coexisting. In the introduction, you write about who spoke about little tradition and great tradition. Robert Redfield. What is little tradition? Which is a tradition of the masses. This is the tradition of the elites. This is documented, this is undocumented. So, to speak about the difference between city and village, this concept was used as if there is no interaction between both. They are isolated communities. But Makim Marriott, in a study of Kishan Garhi village, wrote about universalization and parochialization. So, the great tradition elements are present in the little tradition elements are present in the great tradition. There is a coexisting of little tradition and great tradition. In a study of Kishan Garhi village, Makim Marriott found that there is present the worship. What worship? Saurti worship. Right? So, this Saurti worship became, this was in little tradition, where people worship a deity for wealth, and this only became the worship of Lakshmi of great tradition. So, Saurthi worship, which is the worship of a deity representing wealth, becomes worship of Lakshmi in great tradition. So, little tradition and great tradition is coexisting. Similarly, Navaratri. So, Naurtha, Navaratri became Naurtra. Navaratri became Naurtha. So, these are some of the points which was mentioned by McKim Marriott to explain this. Critically analyze Parsons' view, critically analyze social system. In the introduction, we have to write what is social system according to Parsons. What is social system? Which is having equilibrating tendency, right? So, equilibrium is disturbed and it will be restored according to Parsons. But critics are telling this is not like that. For example, Jesse Bernard criticizes this, that family is exploiting women. It is not causing stabilization of personality. For women, it is only for men that it is causing personality stabilization. For women, it is causing personality destabilization. Then cultural lag theorist Ogburn criticizes Talcott Parsons. Then feminism, Marxism criticizes Parsons because he cannot explain the problems of poverty, unemployment. Subaltern perspective also criticizes Parsons, that the lower strata, especially Dalits in India, they are discriminated in the name of social stratification, say caste system, right? So, these are some of the criticism which can be written against Parsonian theory of social system. Then 7b, environmentalism is a new social movement. What is new social movement? It is not speaking about materialism, it is post-materialism. It is post-materialism. New social movement is post-materialism. Write about the features of new social movement using environment as a movement. So, what are the environmental movement which happened in India? We can have a note on environmentalism in India. That environmentalism is not just a feature of Western society, it is also very much a feature of Indian society, where we worshipped naturism. Gadgil and Guha can be written. Gadgil and Guha can be written, right? Various strategies of environmentalism like Gandhian crusaders, alternative technology, eco-Marxism, eco-feminism can be written, right? So, this is again a straightforward question. New social movement is only environment because it is not speaking about material things, it is speaking about the group unity. There is no targeted enemy for this particular movement, and there is decentralization of leadership. There is no central leadership, they use multiple strategies. This is a feature of new social movement. Illustrate examples of role of pressure group in the formation of social policy. Social policy is the policy which is made by the state to offer social justice, social inclusion and social peace. Every society is making social policy to realize these objectives, right? So, pressure group making social policy, you know that this was already asked in 2021 GS mains question. It is what was asked in GS mains, this is coming last year, it was asked in GS mains, now it has come in sociology. Look at this. So, you write in the introduction about pressure group, why it is called pressure group, how pressure group is pressurizing the government. For example, Narmada Bachao Andolan is a pressure group, what they did. Then CAA, how they are protesting is a pressure group. Then new farm laws scrapped by the government, repealed by the government because of the pressure of the farming community. These are some of the examples which can be written for this question. Next question is decentralization or democratization of science and technology. See, you should understand the Meaning of the question. Democratization. Democracy and science are the two sides of the same coin. Democracy and science are the two sides of the same coin, meaning democratization of polity wanted democratization of economy. Democratization of economy and polity wanted democratization of science and technology. So, deliberative democracy wanted democratic science and technology. Democratization of science was spoken way back, that science should be used for people's purpose. Science should not be used for elitist purpose, it should be used for people's purpose. So, science should not be controlled by few groups who are present in the developed status. An international organization which is representing the interest of few countries cannot control the entire science and technology. Last year there was a question in 2021 Sociology, are we at the mercy of science and technology during pandemic? The same question is repeated in different way this time. Here, democratization of science and technology will lead to what? Universalization of vaccination. It will not be vaccine nationalism, it will be vaccine universalism. Way back after the World War II, there were talks about the social responsibility of science and technology, because in World War II what they did, that atom bomb was used. Science will have to give you sense of security, it has to give you peace of mind, but science has robbed the peace of mind. It has created war between the countries, it led to proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. That is not the purpose of science. Science will have to help the humanity to solve the problems like poverty, solve the problems of lack of access to the people who are in the remote places. Through its communication technology, it has to bridge the country, world, it has to contribute for the informational society where the every nook and corner will have to be connected. So, it should not have any malicious agenda of making profit. The community resource should not be patented, and the resource cannot be privatized in the name of patent rights. According to TRIPS, that genetically modified organism is creating havoc. So, we have to have public contestations are there against GMO crops, and now this has to be taken. So, we have to create reflexive institutions which will be civil society, which will take into account the people's interest in science and technology formulations, right. So, science and technology will have to be people centric, it should not be money centric, or it should not be power centric. That is what is the scope of this question. Now, next is traditional institutions are weakening. Are they weakening? They are not weakening. In some place there is a weakening of traditional institution, in some other place it is only getting stronger. So, this is about what? Social change, whether it is modern or tradition. Modern institution will have to replace traditional institutions. What institution? Family, religion, polity, economy, values, education. All these are what? Institutions. Now, look at in family, whether modernity prevails or tradition prevails. Joint family has been replaced by nuclear family. True. But even in nuclear family, there is present spirit of jointness. So, we cannot say that joint family sentiment is out. Joint family is not there, but joint family sentiment is present. Religion. Science should replace religion, but this is not the case. Today, religion is revived in the form of cult, sect, fundamentalism, communalism, polity. Democracy is what is modern, but in democracy there is place for primordial identity like caste, religion, region. Education. The purpose of modern education is to give you rationality, but education is only excluding many people. It is not inclusive education, there is no universalization of education, and educated elites are becoming more closed rather than having open mind. They are having closed minds. It is the educated elite who are equating modernity to consumption modernity, not internalization of values. So, cultural lag theory says values are not becoming modern, only their outward modernity is happening, that is westernization, not modernization. So, we have the values of individualism increasing. At the same time, we are also wanting a community integration. That is why we are into new cult, new sect and all. Because modernity has community killing character. Old community is gone and we wanted to create new community. So, we find that in some places modernity has replaced the traditional institution. In some other places, traditional institutions are not allowing modernity to come inside, and in many other places there is a coexistence between modernity and tradition. So, Yogendra Singh says modernization of Indian tradition. Modernization of Indian tradition. In some places there is modernization of Indian tradition, in some other places there is present Indianization of modern tradition, and that should be a conclusion for this answer. Patriarchy and social development. What is patriarchy? Male dominated system where women are oppressed, right? So, historical processes, through some historical processes only patriarchy came, which is having its strong root in land and agriculture. Social development means what? Development of the society, well-being of all is what is social development. When 50% of women are excluded from polity, economy and larger society, when they are confined within the four walls of the house through patriarchal division of labor, when 50% do not participate in the productive employment, then development is not going to happen, right? So, social development can happen only when everybody is constructively participating. Look at the World Economic Forum's gender gap report. In that gender gap report, they are telling that 30% of the gap is between men and women as far as wage is concerned. Political representation of women, take for in India, political representation of women, their representation in parliament is very less in comparison to the total strength. In Rwanda, a war-racked country, 48% of the women are, out of 100 MP, 48 women are present. But in India, the representation is very abysmally low. Education, there is so much of dropping out of women from the school system because of patriarchal norms, right? So, right feminism, women are working more than a pair of bullock. In the name of modernity, there is no equality. Modernity is only creation of patriarchy to further enslave women. So, patriarchy is not only present, it is very strongly present today, which is hindering the substantive empowerment of women. That is what is the conclusion we can write for this question. So, we have briefly analyzed the question paper of 2022 Sociology paper 1. The next discussion will be on paper 2 Sociology 2022 shortly. We also will give you the hit list comparison, what we have predicted in our prediction list and what is the question which came. Again, I have to express our happiness that for the 14th time in a row, we were able to hit the bullseye through our hit list questions. See you. Thank you. All the best.